your ability to not only meet these people, but work with them, break their careers. Can you talk about practically what you did in your life to put yourself in those situations?
Well,
a legendary manager, producer, and industry mentor.
He discovered some of the biggest names in comedy.
From Dave Chappelle and Louis CK to Bill Burr and Whitney Cummings.
A connector, a believer, and one of the most influential managers Hollywood's ever seen.
Today, Barry Katz joins us to share what it really takes to make it.
when I first met Chappelle, I remember...
How old was he at this stage?
17 or 18. He's walking through the hallway, sort of in the middle of the comedy club, and he comes towards me, and I said, I want to represent you. I can tell by your aura and by shaking your hand, I feel like there's something happening. I feel like you're going to change the face of the comedy. So I call him back. I say, Frank, I'm ready to close the deal. He said, oh, great. Thank you, Barrett. I said, it's $1 million and an option for another $1 million, $2 million deal.
How did you know that there was 10 times the money in the deal than the original offer?
Are you ready?
Never been more ready.
All right. So...
You're watching The Black Hoodie, and if you're lazy, you can hit subscribe wherever you're watching this. But if you want to join 3,000 business owners and executives in the comedy and music industry, head to theblackhoodie.com. That's our Substack. That's our newsletter. That's where we do all of our good work. So join The Black Hoodie at theblackhoodie.com. It's free. Or again, if you're lazy, just hit subscribe wherever you're watching this. Cheers. Barry, welcome to The Black Hoodie.
I'm honored to be here. I just have to ask you one question.
Go.
What was your second choice for a name?
I didn't have a second choice. So it was a branding thing, and I know I'm not wearing a black hoodie now, but I fucking love black hoodies. I love that they're the metaphor of, you know, seeing what's under the hood, which is the idea of what this kind of Substack is. I love the aesthetic of a black hoodie. I love that it's timeless. I love that you can always wear one, and I'm not wearing one today, so I'm kind of breaking the brand rule. But that was just the concept, and I thought, fuck it. Black Hoodie, and the .com's available. That's good enough for me.
You know what's weird is that if I were to ask you this question, and I know you're the interviewer, I wonder if you would have an answer. When was the first hoodie invented? I don't have the answer, but it doesn't seem like it's timeless because I don't remember a hoodie when I was growing up.
I think it will be timeless. Like timeless in the future. I reckon you go 100 years from now, black hoodies are still a thing. That's my guess. Yeah. Anyway, you are an icon of the comedy business. You have...
Do you have the wrong interview?
You have managed the biggest talent in the world. You've owned venues. You've produced records and movies. But give some context to people who might have heard of you before. Tell us about Barry Katz.
You know, if I had done all those great things, why would I be on a podcast studio on Cahuenga? I'd be back at my house and looking at the ocean, picking sand out of my toes and saying, fuck this. You
are here because you are very generous with your time, and I'm grateful.
No, I'm here because I respect what you do, and I love people who take a risk, do different things. You said to me before this interview started, you say, I fly out here from Australia, you know, maybe 3-4 times a year. And I'm thinking to myself, I never want to go back to Australia again because that flight and that trip is like, as I said, my ex-wife is, and the mother of my children is from Melbourne. And it's so challenging, that trip. It doesn't matter what you fly, whether you fly with the chickens or you fly with a bed that's flat out. It's just you wake up the next morning and you feel like you want to buy a handgun, and it's not a good feeling. But I have
a very different take. If you get to fly with a bed, it's basically a restaurant in the sky where you watch some movies, you play some video games, you have a nap, and you're there. That's the best part of the trip.
Well, that's true. And I do sleep through every flight. I'm like, literally, doesn't matter what I'm doing. I just, before they take off, and then there's a bump and it's like, oh, we landed. This is good.
Yeah.
But that's not the part about me that you want to hear about me. So essentially, if I were to describe myself in terms that you don't want me to describe myself as, and probably your audience wouldn't want me to, as opposed to go through the whole bio of me, they can look me up, is the fact that I look at myself as a connector, and an accelerator. Somebody who can meet somebody and for some strange, odd reason that I can't quantify and I could not understand or verify, it just always happens. It always happens. So wherever I am in the comedy business and the people that I've represented, I'm a young guy from Longmeadow, Massachusetts in the beginning. I'm living a modest life. There's nothing, I know nothing about the entertainment business. And to be able to find my way and meet people like, Chappelle and Burr and CK and Kreischer and Cook and just all these extraordinary artists who, the list humbly goes on and on. Even people that I didn't represent, like Ed Helms ran one of my open mic nights. Timothy Oliphant was a doorman at one of my comedy clubs. Neil Brennan was a doorman at the Boston Comedy Club where he met Chappelle and we pitched Half Baked. It's fucking amazing how the world works, and the world has a plan if you believe. And I've always believed what I was able to do. And I've always believed that if I was able to meet talented people and deliver for them, and with their talent and my talent on the other side, we could change the listening, we could change the world, we could change how people viewed things. And
I just want to clarify something. So you said if you believe you can achieve those things, and you just mentioned Louis CK, you mentioned Dave Chappelle, Neil Brennan. These are the biggest names comedy has ever seen in history. And your ability to not only meet these people, but work with them, break their careers. Can you talk about practically what you did in your life to put yourself in those situations? Because yes, you can believe, but if you're believing from your bedroom, nothing's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to go toe to toe with you and disagree with you.
Okay.
Every dream starts somewhere. It starts when you wake up from the dream. It starts when you're sitting at the desk in a shitty classroom. It starts when you're talking to the host of the Black Hoody Podcast. Visions, dreams, they get started, they come to effect, and then you sit down and you don't own a computer, you write them down on paper of what your vision is, of what you want to accomplish and how you want to accomplish it. And then you start checking things off the list and then adding new things to the list. And you might not do that on paper, you might not do that in your mind. Now, where I'm going to disappoint you and your audience is that I've never gone by what I preach, to people, because I'm an instinct person. I've always been kind of an empath part. And again, I don't expect anybody to believe anything that I say here, but I always feel like I've been part manager, part producer, part sage, part soothsayer, part psychic, part, connector, part dream maker. And I'll sit down with somebody. I can sit down with anybody, and it sounds so cocky because if I were on this podcast and you were telling me to make a list of all the things that I'm a failure at, we would be here for a 106-part series. I only know the things that I'm really extraordinary at. The other things that I'm bad at, I try to stay away from because I realize in this lifetime, maybe I'm not meant to fix them in this lifetime, maybe the next lifetime. So I've always been great at meeting or seeing a talent, knowing if they're going to make it.
How do you know?
It's like a vision. It's incredible. When I first met Chappelle, I remember the manager of my comedy club, the Boston Comedy Club, was Jason Steinberg, who's a manager now. And he said, I saw a kid from DC come, and like to have him go on Tuesday, have you see him. I said, well, Tuesday is our worst night. You know, there's not really many people. He said, it doesn't matter. You got to see this guy.
How old was he at this stage?
17 or 18. And I walk into the club, and there's maybe 30 people there would be generous. And the lights are sort of on. The show hasn't started yet. The music is on. And I go to the bathroom, and I walk out from the bathroom, and he's walking through the hallway sort of in the middle of the comedy club. And he comes towards me, and I don't know how I know it's him. But I go up to him, and I say, Dave, it's Barry. Great to meet you. He said, oh, good to meet you. I said, I want to represent you.
Wait, you said that before you even saw him?
Yeah. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I want to represent you. I can tell by your aura and by shaking your hand. I feel like there's something happening. I feel like you're going to be one of the biggest stars in comedy. You're going to change the face of the game, and you're going to be like one of the biggest, like the Mount Rushmore-ish kind of, and you're going to win awards. It's all over, and I want to be working with you. And he said, you haven't even seen me perform. You haven't seen a videotape. You don't even know me. I said, I don't have to know you. That's what I feel. So he goes on, and he has a good set. It's 30 people. And I asked to meet him, and I tell him I want to manage him. And back then I had these elaborate contracts from the Federation of whatever the fuck it was, which mean nothing. And sorry, Federation. And I remember he talked it over with his grandmother and his mother, and we started working together. But in the meeting, he said to me something that a lot of artists say in the beginning. They'll say something that's a goal of theirs. And a lot of times you'll be like, what? So he says at the meeting, listen, I just want to let you know one of my biggest goals that I want to accomplish. I said, what's that? Is it Letterman? Is it The Tonight Show? Is it a special? Is it a sitcom? No, Barry, I need to do Star Search. I'm like, Ed McMahon's the Star Search? He said, yeah. I'm like, Dave, that's, I don't think that's the thing that we should be going for. Barry, I just have to do it. I'm like, why do you have to do it? He said, it's my grandmother's favorite show.
Oh.
And so I'll tell you this, and I think you'll find this amusing. And then we'll get back to that. So we're at Star Search, and his first time on, he wins. And Ed interviews him and says, something to the effect of, I heard that you were wanted to do the show. He says, oh yeah, Ed, my grandmother, it's her favorite show. And Ed was a pitch man, a famous pitch man for your audience if they don't know this. Ed McMahon did commercials like Kevin Hart, only back then. He did everything, every product you can imagine. And so Dave says, oh man, she loves you, Ed. She loves you. As a matter of fact, we have just a whole, in the house, we have all this Alpo dog food all over the place. And we don't even own a dog because he used to pitch Alpo dog food, whatever. So the next set he had to do, he came to me, he said, listen, Barry, it's in Orlando, Florida. It starts, he says, listen, I want to try something to open up that I haven't cleared with them. What do you think? And he tells me the joke, and I'm like, wow, it seems great. I'll just tell the producer that you're going to do it and whatever. And I tell the producer, and he says, just hang on a second. And if you don't hear from me, just go. And then adds the applause. And, our next comedian from Washington, D.C., he's already won one round. He's only 18 years old. Please welcome, stop the tape. Stop the tape. And the executive producer, the other guy's like running down, like, stop, Ed, stop. Just give us a few minutes. And he walks around the side and he says, listen, Dave, I heard what you're going to do, and you can't do that joke. If you want to repeat a joke, you can't do that joke. And Dave went on, and he ended up losing that thing, and he didn't do the joke. And here's the joke. He says, it's great to be here in Orlando in Disney World. Not a lot of black people at Disney World. I only saw 2 today, and one of them was Mickey.
They blocked it. Oh
They
my
blocked,
God.
canceled immediately.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
so I knew right away, and what would happen was with these artists that I started working with in the beginning, and I think my first artists were like Jay Moore, who I still work with, and like I put him up for auditions, and he'd book series. He was on network series as a kid, and then he got Saturday Night Live when he was like 19, and so you as a manager, your reputation is only good as how great your performers have done. You wouldn't be meeting with me today if I hadn't done something right in my career. We wouldn't have this meeting. I'd be fucking carrying your bags from the airport. So everybody listening knows that you build your legacy through the successes that you have. So every time I'd rally around an artist and then they'd get something like Dave Chappelle, I think he did 8 television pilots and $400 million movies in a row. I had 4 clients on Saturday Night Live before I knew what I was doing. I was walking around 30 Rock with cowboy boots and a ponytail down to my ass. Like, I didn't know what, all I knew is that I understood what people wanted. I assessed what people wanted. And so if there's a lot of businessmen or people here or the artists, it's like the biggest thing that you can have in your life is not just that you can understand what other people want, but that you work with people who understand what you want. And then you execute and they execute. One of the difficult things about being a manager is the fact that there's those artists that are extraordinarily talented. But like, let's say in acting, they go into these rooms and they never get a call back. They never book a job. And then some person you start working with who doesn't have, their talent in their thumbnail can just walk into a room and like, that's our guy. You have no idea how many times I have had somebody go into their first audition and book a job. And then I've had other people who you would consider to be extraordinary artists who rarely booked a job. Here's something fascinating, and I hope he wouldn't be upset if I said this because I think it's common knowledge. So Bill Burr was one of those guys. He booked like at one of his first auditions ever. I don't even think he had come to New York yet. It was called Townies. It was a show about Boston people, Molly Ringwald. And it was a Carsey Werner show, which they'd done Cosby, Roseanne, they're, huge 70s show. And the guy has no acting experience at all, and he books the gig. Fucking incredible accomplishment. Extraordinary. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and again, I don't want Bill to jump over and tackle me, but I don't think he booked another acting job for 8 years.
This is my theory about why there's so much more abuse in Hollywood than other entertainment industries, because having managed artists myself, YouTubers myself, I haven't managed comics, but I really understand the art form in that these other industries, especially comedians, I feel like they're in control of their own destiny. If they're very funny, they're going to say some incredible jokes, people are going to laugh, and they're going to want to see them again. And you're kind of rewarded based on your output. You're in control of your own career. Same with YouTube. If you put up a shit video, no one's going to watch it. If you put up a good one, it's going to go viral. If you can do it again, it's going to go viral again, and people are going to follow you and really latch onto you. And so you're kind of in control of building your own business. The acting world, the Hollywood world, doesn't matter how good you are. If nobody agrees, it's kind of an opinion-based industry. It's like you've got to be christened. You've got to be ordained to this role.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Again, not to go toe-to-toe with you.
Yeah.
But everything is an opinion-based business. If you're a YouTuber who you represent, it's an opinion-based. It's the opinion of the world. I sound like Norm Macdonald. The world.
Yeah, but that.
No, let me go.
Yeah.
Let me
Okay,
go.
all right,
Don't,
you go,
don't,
you go.
just bear with me.
I'm with you.
And all of your YouTubers that you represent and everybody watching who's an influencer will know this. This is factually how I feel so strongly about it. Are you ready?
I've never been more ready.
All right. So let's take one of your clients. Just take anyone. You don't have to mention any names. Okay? So last month in September, we look at every video they posted. Okay? And we see all the views that each one got. And there's one, let's say they posted only one a day. So one is going to be the top viewed, most watched video, and one is going to be the 30th. Now, you know the data. Your artist knows the data. But let's pretend we hit you both on the head with a rock and you have amnesia. And I present all 30 videos to you and you can watch them as many times as you want. And now you have that Minority Report board that Tom Cruise had. Okay, that's going to be number 1. That's going to be number 2. That's going to be number 3, all the way to 30. The chances of you and your artist, and I will put 1,000 other smart people together in the room to do the combinations, would be like predicting the NCAA college basketball tournament bracket. Okay, you have no fucking idea what's going to be number 1. Neither do they. They think they do, and they'll be the first one to tell you, my God, I just fucking look, I don't know what I thought that was going to be the biggest one. It fucking sucked. And this other one I did where I did something stupid, it's the best. This is ridiculous. And so the world decides there. Now, granted, the artist controls the career and controls what they put out. When you audition, you're reading other people's material. But I look at it.
You don't even get the opportunity to put out content if you're not chosen for the role.
That's right. But I still look at it this way. Whether there's 100 people auditioning or 1,000, okay? The bottom line is I look at the casting director, the writer, the studio, the network as the world. Your influencer has to break through to the world. Now, what your influencer just has differently is they have more chances to break through the world in their lane.
Which is everything.
In acting, you have, if you get callbacks or whatever, you have, but you still have the chances. And this is what aggravates me the most. You'll talk to an artist. Sometimes somebody you manage, sometimes somebody you don't. And they'll say, hey, listen, I went into these auditions. My agent told me I was great. It was a great audition. They watched the video. The casting director said it was great. That was the feedback. I'm like, look, motherfucker, the feedback is you either got the fucking show or you didn't get the show. Did you book it or you didn't book it? This isn't fucking horseshoes, okay? You got to book the show. And that's what's amazing about life. And I remember working with Whitney Cummings, who is one of the hardest working comedians in the world. Incredible.
She's fantastic.
Hard worker. One of the greatest thrills of my life was working with her and sold 3 television shows that went on the air in 1 year. I don't know of anybody. If you can do the research and tell me anybody who's done that in history, please let me know. And she'd been doing it only 7 years. So when I think of Whitney and I think of all these things that I'm talking about, I think of a story when she was doing Two Broke Girls. I remember her filling me in on things every few days or whatever. And she'd say, hey, this girl came in, this blonde girl. She was really great. She hasn't really done anything. I think, her her biggest credit is waiter number 3 in a whatever, but she came in and she nailed it, but she has no experience really. But we have her picture up and we're thinking about her. We brought her back a few times and she keeps coming in and nailing it the way we love it. And then later they were testing people, and they tested like 3 or 4 people, maybe 5. The least of them had over 100 episodes of network television experience. And Whitney told me the story how they decided to test Beth. Beth Bears is her name, from Two Broke Girls. And she, when you're doing a deal for pilots, just so people know, it's a lot of money compared to what people normally make. Just a regular schlub could make, or schlubette, could make anybody, any actor could make easily $25,000 for the pilot. Some actors who have more credits, $50,000 for the pilot. Like somebody like Ray Romano, I believe in his pilot, Everybody Loves Raymond, I think he got $50,000 for the pilot, $25,000 an episode to start. Then when it gets going, you renegotiate. So it's a lot of money. And even if it's not a lot of money and they try to like take you down, like Jay Moore, I think probably made $10,000 an episode for his first sitcom when he was 19. And other people were making more, but he couldn't get more because there was competition. Long story longer, she goes, and when you test for a show, you're as an actor, you're out in the waiting room with the other actors, and you're just sitting there with them. You're waiting your turn. You have the number when you're going on. You have no choice in when you're going on what number. So you go first. You think, okay, if I go first, normally a bad spot, but the first spot is you get the laughs, the fresh, it's like whatever, nobody hears the lines. And if you go 5th, you really got to bring something original to it that somebody else didn't to get the laughs or whatever.
And explain testing. Is it they've got a dummy audience there, right?
Yeah, no, I'm going to explain it. So this is great. Thank you for asking. So when you test for television, this is one of the most incredible things about acting. So acting, you're in like, the percentages are in the less than 1% you're going to book thing. It's just for most people. For the good actors who aren't well known, maybe it's 10%. And for the extraordinary actors, even Jim Carrey had the test against Nicolas Cage for Man on the Moon.
Whoa.
And so sometimes they're not always offered. So what happens is, this is crazy. So you go in, you do the audition, 5 minutes. They love you. Casting director brings you back with the producers. Maybe the director if he's an executive producer. You go back 5 more minutes. Now, this is what's weird. Most of the time, they don't change the sides. The sides, for those of you who don't know, is the script that you're reading. That's a part of the script. Sometimes they make scenes for it that aren't part of the script, but it's normally part of the script. Those are called the sides. They normally want you to come back and nail it the way you did before. Sort of like a comedian on stage, if you're going to really nail that bit, you want to do it the same way you did it best each time, so the audience it kills as best as possible. And sometimes they'll give you direction. Could you do that a little bit angrier, or could you be a little sadder here, or whatever? But for the most part, you're supposed to do the same thing. After you come back for the producers, then they decide whether they're going to test you. Now, they might bring you back another time before they test you, but normally that's when. So now they give you a test deal. It's like a fucking 67-page piece of paper contract that has every fee, everything you're making for 7 years. It has your pilot fee, your episodic fee. Then the next year you'll get your bumps to another raise, and it'll show everything. So they're covered for 7 years.
Under the condition that you pass the test.
Yes, but they don't want you to get the role and then tell them what the terms are. They want to tell you before you do it. So they cover themselves. And so your agent or manager or both or lawyers negotiate that back and forth. And then
is that really tough as a manager, because you really have no leverage negotiating at that point because you want your talent to get the part, and you're trying to negotiate over deal terms and not piss them off too much, and like, is that a really sensitive time to negotiate?
Remember, we started off this conversation with believe, and if you're an artist, you need to believe that you're the best. You need to believe that you're extraordinary. So the greatest gift that any artist I've ever managed, any client I've ever consulted with, any company I ever consulted with, any TV or film production I've ever been on, the greatest gift that I've ever gotten is tell them no. No, thank you. I'm grateful, but no, thank you. And when somebody can walk away from something, that's when you know if they want you or not. The fear for artists is, okay, maybe they don't really want me. So if I negotiate too hard, I'm going to lose it and they're going to give it to somebody else. So the feeling in most artists is, well, I might not be as good as everybody else. And so before they figure that out, I'd like to fucking get the gig. But the artist that knows that they're incredible, it's like, you have no idea what it's like to offer, to make an offer to, let's say, Dave Chappelle for like a gig somewhere for like $750,000 for a half hour. And no, thank you. It's like, okay, when you turn down $50 million, I mean, I can't even begin. And Dave was one of my first clients. I can't begin to.
You were managing Dave when this happened?
No, not when that happened.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is like, but I will tell you a story about it where I was involved. But how much, people shit on people for turning things down. Oh my God, he's crazy. He's a nut job. How could he turn down $50 million? It's like, I never had more respect for anybody in my life because he knew what he knew and he didn't want to do it the way they wanted him to do it. And he knew that he could bet on himself and he knew he'd make the money back. He didn't know when, but he knew in his mind that he was better than that. And the money wasn't everything. And I say this because everybody watching, most of you wouldn't turn down $5,000 or $50,000 or $500,000 or what, $5 million, $50 million. It's like fucking crazy. So a little story on the side here. So I get a call from Doug Herzog, the president of Comedy Central at the time. And he said, listen, can you, I have a check of Dave Chappelle's. It's made out to Pilot Boy Productions for $27 million. Could you have him come in here and pick it up? Now, Pilot Boy is his company because I did 7 or 8 pilots with him and they all failed. And so his logo, if you ever see it, it says Pilot Boy and he's in handcuffs. And I think it's a little homage also to, it might be, to one of his best friend, Tony Wood's routines in the early going, where Tony said that, in his words, Tony's words, black people are always accused of being late, but nobody ever knows why. And I'm going to share why. You see, back in the days of Africa, we were chilling. We were having a great time. We loved our lives. And then there were these flyers. We woke up the next morning, flyers everywhere. I'm paraphrasing. It might be a little different. And he said, there's going to be a big cruise ship that's going to come by. There's going to be food. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be dancing, music. And so all of us were so excited. We got to the beach early. And when we got there, clink, 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 And that's why we ain't never been fucking on time after that. Anyway, so Doug says, can you get him in here? I said, no, I can't get him in there. He said, well, I know you don't work with him, but you still are friendly with him, and I can't get anybody to reach him, and I know you can reach him. I said, I know I can reach him, but I'm not gonna ask him, and I'm not gonna have him come in, because he's not gonna come in. I don't know him that well, but I know that he's not gonna come in and pick up the check. And Doug started yelling at me on the phone. He never yelled at me. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, it's like a check for $27. Just get him in here to pick it up. I said, if he picks it up, he knows you own him, and he's not going to pick it up. Cut to 3 months later, I'm in LA. I'm walking into this place called Real Food Daily, and I walk in, and there's Dave and his wife, and I said, Dave, you know, I think I should tell you the story that happened to me. He said, what is it? He said, you know, Doug Herzog called me and wanted you to come into his office. And I told him I wasn't going to call you because the reason why he wanted you there was something that you wouldn't agree to. And I was pretty confident of that. He said, what was it? He said he told me he had a check on his desk for $27 million made out to Pilot Boy Production for you to pick up. And I told him that you wouldn't come there because if you picked it up, then, you know, he owns you. And he said, thank you, Barry. He said, what was the check for again? I said she said it was for $27 million. And Dave, without missing a beat, just was like, sounds a little light. I'll never forget that.
That's amazing. So I want to empathize here as a manager, and I don't know the story, so this is a genuine cold question. I tried to Google it. I tried to do some research. I couldn't figure out the timeline. You started managing Louis CK, Dave Chappelle, effectively broke them, half baked. You did the Comedy Central deal with Chappelle Show? Or was that after you?
I did not do that deal.
It was after you. All right. I have some curiosities about that.
He took 6 years off and went to Yellow Springs, and then he came back and did that show with Neil Brennan. Show.
So,
but I did introduce him and Neil Brennan.
Yeah. So you were such a fundamental part of building these comedians' careers, who are now the biggest comedians in the world. We're certainly on their track now. Now you're no longer working with them. How did those relationships end? And why do you think that happens to managers who manage these, you know, big stars early?
Well, I think that big stars early, big stars late. I think relationships in business are like marriages, and you know, it takes really, really extraordinary people to keep the train on the tracks and to be able to make it all happen. And I'm not saying that I'm not shitting on myself and saying that I would like to think that I have extraordinary qualities, and I would like to think the track record speaks for itself. But there comes a point in time where certain artists start making a certain amount of money, and it's a daunting thing when you start. You know, if you saw some of the checks that I've been written, you know, my car breaks down, and I go to pick it up. The guy fixes it. It's perfect. It's wonderful. And I get the bill. I'm like, fucking motherfucker, these cocksuckers. I can't believe I got to pay this. And so I think money and safety has a lot to do with it. And so I can't speak to why things end, because a lot of people, they don't communicate. A lot of them, for some reason, don't want the confrontation. So you'll just meet with them, and they might say, like, I met with somebody who I stopped working with, and I think they went from like, who knows, maybe $100,000 a year to $4 million. No, I was somebody who was a part of, in a way, connecting them to the person who became their, in an interesting, weird story way, to meet their wife, who they started a family with. I'd like to think my work helped them get like a palatial mansion wherever they are. I never got in an argument with them. I never raised my voice. They never raised my voice to me. There never anything that we worked on that they were like, man, you really fucked that up, or you did this. And when I met with them, it was like, okay, so what is it that's going on here? Well, this one area here in this area of our business, I think that it could be done better. Now, keep in mind, this area of the business, which I'm not going to mention, had grown 7 million times from what it was before. But he had felt that that was an area that could be improved upon, and maybe it could have been, or whatever. But the communication is such that I sit down with them and I'm like, okay, so there's this, all this that's gone well, and this you don't think is going well. But you don't sit down and say, hey, listen, I don't think this part is going well. Can we revamp it and get it to where it's like this thing? And then when it all goes down, then you realize, oh, my name is on 100 contracts through the next year and a half that are over, millions and millions of dollars. So then you realize, oh, and then you might ask for that, what you're owed, and they might say, that's, I don't think you're owed that because.
Well, this is the post term of a contract clause you're talking about, where if a artist terminates a relationship with the manager's still entitled to earn several years after, whether it's on specific projects or a full income. Yeah,
like for instance, if you were an actor and I booked you on whatever, Succession, and then after the first, you're making $25,000 an episode, and you stop working with me, I'm entitled to my commission on that $25,000 an episode for as long as you're on the show. Now, if you sign with another person and they renegotiate your deal 2 years later for $100,000 an episode, then that person makes the percentage of the $75,000, and I still get my thing. But a lot of artists, money, family, pressures, relationships, marriages, there's all different factors. Sometimes there's drugs and alcohol. But the bottom line is, and I'm so glad you asked it, because I think it's important for everybody, watching. I'm not in AA, but I've represented a lot of people who are in the program. And one of the things that I hear often throughout my life is, what's your part in it and what's their part in it? So I could sit here and tell you story after story about why things happen the way they do and from my perspective. But the bottom line is that it happened. There's people who stay and there's people who leave. And the people who stay, there's their part in it and my part in it. And the people who leave, there's their part in it and my part in it as well. And just because I don't have a clear understanding of why somebody would make that decision after I feel like I've done an extraordinary job, for most artists I work with, I feel like the results are pretty incredible. For some artists, I feel like I wasn't doing the job. Like I actually resigned from working with Bill Burr because I was failing. I wasn't moving the needle at the end, and I felt shitty about it. I felt really sick.
How did you quantify that? Like, what defined not moving the needle?
Because I just wasn't, things weren't happening the way they normally did with my formulas that I normally utilize inside me to help somebody get to the next level. And I felt sick to my stomach about it because so talented. And I just whatever showcase or whatever thing happened, people just weren't giving him the opportunities like they did before with townies. And I just felt that he could find a better manager, or if they weren't a better manager, a manager that was better suited for him and could figure out a different way to move the needle with his talent and their talent. And I think I did that also with Mike Epps, another guy. I just great things were happening, but he was, very up and down in what he wanted. And I just didn't feel like I was, even though he's making money, I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. So sometimes as a manager, it's the same in your personal relationships out there. It's like, I hope you don't mind me being long-winded, and I have no time limit here. When you're in a relationship, whether you're gay, straight, whatever you are, or you decide to be, or the bottom line is you have an idea of what you want from the relationship, and the things that are going to be important to you that you want to have happen. And during that relationship, and I'm sure everybody who's listening knows this, there's times when your partner says, hey, listen, you're upset about that, but you didn't really tell me that you, or your partner says something that's like that. And then there's the other side where you think you know what's best for you as an artist, and you think you know what's best for you as a manager, but you're just anticipating because you don't know what the best working relationship and time is. I just had an artist reach out to me today and said, listen, I'm going to send this deal memo over to this company because you haven't given me your notes. And I type back, may I make a request? Could you give me another 24 hours? You only gave it to me last night.
Jesus.
But in his mind, he wants a relationship where something's sent and it's addressed and marked up then. But another artist might be like, hey, listen, I'm sending you this and take the rest of the week. But somebody could look at that artist and say, boy, that's unrealistic. And then somebody could look at me and say, well, why didn't he just reach back to him that night and just say that he got it and that he needs some time? Why did he wait for the guy to do it? So there's a devil and angel on every shoulder speaking. And as my mother used to say, there's three sides to every story. There's their side, there's my side, and there's the truth. And at the end of the day, nothing matters, because when you're a manager like you are, you don't own the IP of your artist. You are not in control of your artist. You are a fucking slave to your artist. I'm not saying that a slave is a negative word, but I just want to say, in the connotation of that, when
you're a servant.
You're a servant to their needs. That's your fucking job. They make the list of what they want, you check them off, and you own nothing, and you have no time limit.
Do you think that's the way it should be?
I think that it can be any way that anybody does it. There's no rules anymore. So if I want to represent an artist and I say I'm not going to represent you unless I'm guaranteed for this amount of time. But the reason why none of that matters is, when you get married and if you're Jewish and you break the glass and everything until death do us part, well, men have cheated on women. Women have cheated on men. Both parties have lied to each other. People do bad things. And you're still in that contract until you get out. It's like, and so no written contract for a manager or even an agent fucking means nothing. Nothing. They're just, it's like, it's.
What about the post terms? Surely post terms mean a lot.
You can't. Okay. Here you go. And for your audience. Okay. Let's just say, and I don't mean to talk about these things that might happen to people that are negative, because I don't look at.
Sorry, Barry, this is like, don't apologize. This is very important because managers are always the first to get blamed and the first to be fired, even though they're typically the hardest working, most invested team member in an artist's career. So it is a very important topic, not only for managers, but also for artists, because what happens is when good executive functioning talent managers, highly strategic, highly capable talent managers keep getting fired or keep losing their talent just as they break, they leave the industry and they go somewhere else. And then artists are just left with there's just not many good managers left after that. If everybody leaves the industry, there's not many good, so it's bad for artists too. So it is like understanding post terms, understanding contracts, retaining great managers in the industry is imperative for comedians and musicians and YouTubers and everyone to succeed. It's important for them. So I think this is an important topic.
Okay. So let's just say you're a music manager and you're working with an artist for 5 years. They figure out a way to launch an album in their own unique way, and it blows up. And then there's record labels want them, and they're negotiating that, and they're squeezing the record label because there's many people after them. And they do the deal, and let's say the artist has a tour coming up and they're scheduled to make, let's just throw out any number, and it might be unrealistic. Let's just say it's $1 million. This young artist is going to make for 40 dates.
And music managers typically making 20%, so they're likely to take after costs about $100,000 to $150,000 from that.
Yeah. So the artist decides to fire them after the tour is booked, and because they got their tour manager, and so now the manager wants to at least get his $150,000 back, right? Okay. So what do you have to do? Right away, you know that you're never getting 100% of what you thought you were going to make. It's never going to happen. I'll say it again in the camera. It's never going to happen unless you have pictures of the artist with sheep. Okay? It's never going to happen. So now you have to say to yourself, what am I accepting of taking when I just had an artist try to take that away from me? Now, normally, your thought process is, well, I mean, I'd like to make 3/4 of it, but realistically, after all the craziness and bullshit,
legal fees,
if I could get half of it, that would be great. But the legal fees are crippling, because the greatest lawyers who do litigation like that, they're not going to take a case for $150,000. Most places won't take it. And if they do take it, they're looking for 33% of sometimes 40% of what you, sometimes 30 of what you get. So you fight hard, you do whatever, you get the lawyer, put it together. Let's say you get the contingency, which is so rare to get. Normally you have to hire an hourly lawyers between $500 and $1,500 an hour.
The contingency is?
The contingency could be versus, 30, 33, 40%.
So it's a percentage of what you win versus an hourly fee. Yep.
And so they finally, after all the years, get it done, all the anguish, whatever, and you get, let's say you get a settlement of $75,000. So then the lawyer, if he's taking the contingency, he's going to take about $30,000 or $35,000. And if you're paying somebody hourly, you're going to pay way over $75,000.
Yeah.
And then you think of all the hours you have to spend with it on your mind, fighting it, doing it. And it's better to just get in, settle it, and get the fuck out, because you have to move on, because the world has a plan. And in your case, the world's plan was move this guy out so you have time for another person to come in. But management is about riding the bull for as long as you can. And then when you get thrown off, know that you're healthy enough to get on another bull and ride again. And that's what it is. Now, I'm a very, I think I'm a very bizarre case, because one of my strengths is also one of my weaknesses. I love doing everything I can in this crazy, fucked up business. So I've owned comedy clubs. I am a corporate consultant. I have a 3-year deal with Cirque du Soleil to bring comedians there. I work with products that want to incorporate comedy in there. I have my podcast, Industry Standard. I've done that for 13 years on the side. I've interviewed everybody from Kevin Hart to Judd Apatow to the president of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, Dr. Phil, anybody you can imagine. I've interviewed 25 network presidents. Okay, I do that. I do my Blueprint program, which is this weird, fun program, because I can't manage everybody, but I always know everywhere I go in comedy clubs, people have always come up to me and asked my advice or on whatever. So I wanted to set up a portal where any artist in the world could come in, and there'd be different tiers, and they could have a part of me in different ways. They could have a weekly meeting with me. They could have a private meeting with me. I could help them in anything like that. And there's like 1,000 people.
What's the website for that?
It's called theindustryblueprint.com. And it's just these areas where people can Airbnb my brain. And within that, there's a whole other area that's a blueprint accelerator, which is this collection or collective of people from all over the world. There's a guy in New Zealand who has 3.5 billion views on his YouTube channel. He's like the YouTube expert. There's a social clipping expert. There's a palette and branding and logo and website design and skinning expert. There's a literary expert that looks at scripts with me and identifies problems and issues and gets going. There's 2 Emmy award-winning producers who help me shoot pilots and presentations and hour specials for like $25,000. They can do an hour special.
What?
And so I can, because of my connections and everything.
I'm a comic. I come to you for $25,000. You can shoot my hour special.
Yes, and
fully edited, delivered,
and it'll look like something that's.
I think I've got a lot of referrals for you. That's okay. That's amazing.
And
Keep going.
Because what happens is, in this day and age, if you can find people who want to do something different. Like these guys won an Emmy Awards for a documentary on HBO, but they love comedy, and and shooting a comedy special, I've done 45 of them. It's like breathing for me. It's not difficult. So I can just tell them how I think they should go, have them look at 10 specials and look at study the angles to see which works best, show them to the artist, what does the artist want? And then we make it happen. And these guys own their own equipment and do everything. And when 20 years ago, when I started doing a lot of hour specials for other people, I just actually ran into Tom Arnold, and it was kind of an emotional moment because I asked him if I could do his first hour special. This is back when it cost like $100,000 or more to do them. And he said yes, and I'll never forget, he got off stage and he got a standing ovation and he hugged me and he was like almost hyperventilating, crying, just thank you.
Oh.
And again, from the beginnings of what we talked about on this podcast, this is what you want. You want to make a difference. So let me keep going. So with the industry standard, I know I make a difference to thousands, hopefully. I mean, there's millions of people who have listened, and it helps them. I ran into Ted Sarandos last time I ran into him, and he said, Barry, I don't do really any podcasts, but, I keep hearing about my podcast. I said, how do you keep hearing about it? He said, mostly when people interview with me, they sit down with me. I'm like, how do you know all this stuff about me? They're like, oh, I listen to the podcast or whatever. So the blueprint is a way to help artists that I can't manage everybody, but I can make a difference. And the sad part about the blueprint, which I don't like, is that I guess I do a lot of private consulting too. A ton of people who no one knows that I help them. And what's difficult, which I don't like, is the people with more money get more of me in the private consulting world. And so that's why the blueprint was important for me, so I could do something for people who don't have as much money. And I'm excited about that. And then,
do you use the blueprint also as an A&R, or I don't know if A&R is the right language in comedy, but a scouting source, because somebody comes through blueprint and you're like, this guy's fucking good, or this girl's freaking good, I actually might want to manage them?
I've definitely been in situations where I produced things that people have done. There's a pilot presentation that I did with a consulting client that has won 7 festivals this year as the pilot. So I do those things. There's another consulting client I had that came to me with a script. I love the script. It was a drama. I'm not really a drama guy, but I love drama. And I'm like, wow, man, this is good. He said, look, I put money in the bank 11 years ago, and there's $445,000 in there right now. Can we make the movie for that? I said, it's going to be tough, but I think we can do it. And I'd be honored to help you produce it. He said, great. We put a deal together, and these are the God shots that happen. Everybody listening or watching knows that everybody's had a God shot. And what I mean by a God shot is like things just, you're like, how do these things happen? So I finished the producing deal with him. He said, the first agenda is getting a star for the movie, or at least somebody who, when you're working in an independent movie, your goal, one of your first goals, I believe, if you don't have relationships or people aren't going to take chances whose stock is moving higher, they're not going to take a chance on an independent film if their stock is moving, because they can take a chance on a film that's fully financed and big and can pay them a lot of money. So you have to concentrate on the people who have a household name, whose stock might be down a little bit, but who everyone knows and knows that they're capable of doing an extraordinary performance. And I'm like, God, I gotta put my list together for people like this. And I'm in the bank. I'll never forget this. And in Malibu, and I hear that distinctive gravelly voice. Can I get this deposit? And I'm like, I look over, and it's somebody who I've been friendly with and I've interviewed. It was Michael Madsen, the late Michael Madsen. And I hug him. I say, Mike, how are you? I haven't seen you in a long time. He said, Barry, my son just committed suicide, and I've been in rehab, and they just let me out to come to the bank. My sponsor's out there, and I just, my life's shit right now, Barry. I want to get my family back together again. I said, you got 5 minutes?
You want a movie?
He said, yeah, what is it? And before I said anything, he said this, he said, Barry, you know, before we talk about anything, can I just tell you something? I said, yeah, what is it? Look, I'm really, really in tough shape, man. If you have anything for me where you can get me some money right away so I can send to my family, I'll guarantee I'll do the movie. I'll sign it. I said, funny you should ask. How much do you need? He said, can you get me $30,000 for the movie, and another $10,000 that you give me that my manager doesn't find out about?
Oh, jeez.
I said, you don't want your manager to know? He said, no, man, I need that extra money. I said, okay. Get on my cell phone. I call the guy from the Blueprint who I met and did the film with. I said, can you wire $10,000 today? I got to give it to Michael Madsen in cash. He's like, Barry, I don't even, I mean, that's exciting, but how do I know he's going to do the movie? I said, you don't. But we're going to take a risk, and I'm going to hope my relationship with him works and we can make it happen. And I'll work with his manager on the other thing and just pretend it's a $30,000 deal for 3 days' work. And he'll do me the favor. And he did. And, you know, to have a guy who'd been in 8 $200 million movies.
Yeah.
Was a huge thing. And that helped us get, you know, a lot of people who've done a lot of things. So Zach Gordon from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, he did the lead in those movies. Now he's an adult and he's a great dramatic actor. Rob Morrow, who was on the show Numbers for 5 years on CBS and Northern Exposure, and a great actor. We got him. Jay Moore did it. Kirk Fox, Jeff Ross did a cameo. And we submitted to festivals this past year. It closed the LA Film Festival. The Man's 400-seat theater packed. It won the New York Soho Festival's Best Picture Award. So I do get involved in certain things that I believe in. The tough part is like, what do you get involved in and what do you don't? And when you're giving notes to people, to let them know that, you know, because you're a manager. I was on the phone with a client the other day, and he sent me a sizzle reel. He said, this sizzle reel just won the $10,000 first prize at this competition, and it won the $25,000 first prize at this other competition. And I watch it, and I'm like, I don't laugh at all. Like, I'm like, so I have a lot of interns and assistants. I think I 10 different people I show it to, and I'm watching them not laughing at all. And I call them and I say, listen, I don't want to tell you this, but I don't, and there's something here, but it's not written funny. And it's like, we gotta change it. He's like, everybody likes it. You're the only one who doesn't like it. And 10 people you don't like. You don't like it. I'm like, look, I'm not a yes man.
Yeah.
I'm in your life to give you contrarian opinions to help you make things the best they can be. And then he said, I love constructive criticism. I eat constructive criticism for breakfast. Whatever you want to tell me, I could take it. I'm like, okay, well, I really don't think this is that good right now. I think we got to make it better. What the fuck are you talking about? It's great. So you this happens all the time. So then, just to keep going with my theme, I love managing. I love producing TV and film. I love creating shows. And so there's all these things.
For the Barry business, which is your biggest income source right now?
It changes all the time, because one time you could be managing a client that just fucking, it's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then one time they're like, hey, I'm not going to work this year. I'll never forget Dane Cook. I was working with Dane Cook. I hope you wouldn't mind if I said this, because it was just fascinating. It was just so much. And I never care about the money. I'm not one of those managers that care about the money. And the money's going to come. You do great work.
Do you not care about the money because you have a lot of it?
No, I never consider myself having a lot of it. I've always put everything back, either in my personal life or my business. Like I'll share something that's, I don't want things to come across the wrong way. When I was a little kid, and let's get back to the Dane Cook story. When I was a little kid, I saw the ocean for the first time, and I said to myself, I have to live looking at the ocean. I want to live looking at the ocean. I want to be there. And when I came to LA, I remember Nick Swartzen, who was a client of mine, was living in this building in Venice Beach near a rose. For those of you who come to LA and know LA, it was above the Fig Tree Cafe, which is a famous vegan restaurant on Venice Beach. And he said, my friend is leaving his apartment, and I know you've always wanted to be by the ocean. And I was staying in this beautiful home in the Hollywood Hills, like fucking beautiful. But I hadn't lived on the ocean yet, and I was just busy and crazy. And he says, check it out. And I check it out, and this building is a fucking shithole. Okay, it's a walk up, smells like piss, and it's next to a halfway house. There's a guy, on meth in the front door. Every night you have to fucking open the door. But I walked into this corner place on the ocean, this one bedroom, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm getting this place. And it was like $850 a month. That's all it was. And it was a dive, and I was in this beautiful place, and I just said, fuck it, I want to see what it's like to live on the ocean. And ever since I have. And so I do live in Malibu, and I lived in Malibu for a long time. And people a lot of times ask that question that you asked about the money. And look, if I lived a life in Glendale or Valencia or insert suburban neighborhood here, then I'd look across from you and say, man, I'm, you see, it's fucking craziness. But when you decide to live a certain lifestyle that makes you happy, you have to dedicate a lot of money to that thing. And I'm not like spoiled, and I'm not like I don't get a lot of stuff, but I love the calm and peace of mind that I have. And once you find this, and all your artists find this, and everybody listening finds this, at the top of the chain in terms of everything, the very, very top in anything you do is 3 words: peace of mind. And if you have peace of mind, you have everything.
How do you get it?
I'll tell you how you get it. So first of all, you get it by something that has a negative connotation. Because right under peace of mind, right below it on the chart, control. And control is a negative word. She's controlling. He's controlling. My boss is controlling. The network executive is controlling. They keep trying to control the show. It's control. But the thing is, as an artist, as a manager, as a CEO, the more variables that you can control the way you want them to, you control how much money you make, you control the products that you put out, you control the money that you pay people, you control the people that work with you, you control your content, you control how, who you find, who you fall in love with, and who's going to spend the rest of your life with. You control which house you buy, which furniture you buy inside. You're the most happy. There isn't anybody who doesn't have control. I'm sorry. There isn't anybody that has control that doesn't have peace of mind. But I say peace of mind is at the top rather than control for a weird reason. And I always go back and forth on it. Because I used to say that control was on top and peace of mind was second. But I recently have been putting peace of mind on top because you kind of need to have this peace of mind and calm to be able to understand what you have to do to control the different variables of your life. And sometimes if you don't have that peace of mind and you start going with control, you start making decisions that create more problems for you. And so to create that peace of mind, it is controlling as many variables as possible. Now, you as a manager, you can't control your artists. It's like you can't control anything. It's like all you can do is do the best job possible you can for them, what they want, and hope you understand how they're communicating things to you and hope they understand how you're delivering for you. And that's it. It's like, look, Steve Jobs, everybody talks about how incredible Steve Jobs was, but everybody knows that he, wasn't great socially with people. He didn't really have those skills or whatever, but he had other skills. But sometimes you can't always control things. Elon Musk, remember that demo of the Cybertruck?
Oh yeah, the
Fantastic.
broken window.
He throws the shot put in the thing. I want to say to your audience, I have no dog in the fight. I'm not like saying I'm an Elon Musk fan. I'm not an Elon Musk fan. But this is what I am a fucking fan of. I'm a fan of a guy on the biggest stage introducing the biggest product he's introduced in like 3 years and having a cascade failure of broken glass, dented doors, and fucking nothing. Just peace of mind, calmly, whether inside he was raging, just like went through that thing.
Do you remember what he said after?
I forget.
It was fucking hilarious. He goes, room for improvement.
Yeah. And it made me want to get the fucking truck, even though it was a fucking failure. That's because he gave me the peace of mind and he made me feel safe that he's going to take care of it. And being a manager is about making people feel safe, just like it is in a relationship. And when I'm in a personal relationship, not to get creepy, but I look at it a lot of times the same way as a business relationship, in the sense that it's like being a cast member on Saturday Night Live. Sherry O'Terry once said this to me. I represented her for a little while. She said, whenever I was on SNL, I always felt like, even though I was in every sketch and I was doing great work and I was on the cover of Rolling Stone, that I was just auditioning for the next day. And personally, when I'm in a relationship, I have to audition for the next day. And if I don't get the next day, then I got no one to blame but myself, and look in the mirror. So if I get fired, yeah, does it sting? Of course, I want to represent people when I'm in a wheelchair. But also, an artist has the right to feel things. When I interview Ted Sarandos for my podcast, anybody watching here, do you think most artists are like, yay, Barry, that's great news that you interviewed Ted Sarandos and you brought information to the world that's helpful for the world?
They're smart. They would say, Barry, it's great you have a relationship with him, so when I need you to pick up the phone, he'll answer.
No, but this is what, in my mind, I'm not saying it's right. This is in my mind what most artists feel after they find out. Hey, Barry, how you doing? Yeah, great. Listen, I heard your episode with Ted Sarandos. Yeah, thanks, man. It was great. I had a great time. Listen, did you talk about me? No, I was just doing the interview. Did you lock him in for my podcast? No, I was just doing the interview. Did you talk about an hour special for me? No, I just went to his office for 1 hour to do the interview. But if I will be doing those things in the future, but I didn't do them then. Well, why not? You're with him. So in my mind, that's what some artists might think. And so
there's this episode of The Office where Michael Scott is trying to sell a paper contract, and his boss, Jan, at the time, is so pissed off at him because all he's doing is drinking and talking about dumb shit and not actually doing the close. And they build this strong relationship over the whole night. And then right at the end, he kind of goes, oh, look, you got to help me out here, blah, blah, blah. And then he closes the deal. And then the manager, his boss realizes, oh my God, this Michael Scott idiot actually knows what he's doing, and he's building a relationship. And
that's one of my biggest things that people make fun of me all the time. The word I say over and over again, relationships. And you mentioned Neil Brennan early on, and I
got a big man crush on him.
And as Jeff Ross would say, you drop more names than Oscar Schindler. But Neil Brennan, when I interviewed him, the thing he said that resonates with me so much, he said, nothing valuable has ever happened in my career unless I was hanging out at a comedy club around comedians. And there is that relationship thing, and I do believe that. And that's a lot of times what happens with the podcast. People ask me, like, a lot of times, like, have you interviewed Jay Leno? And I've known Jay Leno, 40 years. I'm like, no. Why not? You were just with him the other night. You were hanging out at the Improv and with him and Arsenio, another guy you haven't had on the podcast. How come you just don't ask him? I said, because I just want the relationship to evolve, and when I feel the time is right, I'll ask. There's no sense of urgency. No one's passing away if I don't do somebody on the podcast. It's not a money thing. And so I like creating those relationships, and those are, I think, really important. The
ability for you to call someone and them answer your call is maybe the most important skill set you can have as a manager, or the important asset you can have as a manager. And that's
then if that's the case, then humbly I'm very blessed, because I can't remember a time when somebody didn't pick up the phone, or even somebody who I don't manage anymore. One of the greatest feelings in the world is knowing that you've experienced something that maybe didn't go your way per se, the way you think it did. And instead of holding a grudge, you have the greatest respect for them. I'll never forget Bob Morton, who was the executive producer of Letterman for 15 years or more. A really good friend, and I produced a lot of shows with him. And I interviewed him. And he said one day, Dave just called him in the office and sat him down and said, listen, we're going to make a change, Morty. He's like, what? Yeah, we're going to make a change. What kind of a change? Well, I'm not gonna need you here anymore. Dave, we worked together for 15 years. I know, but I'm making a change. Thanks, Morty. And I asked him, I said, what's something you could tell me about that people wouldn't really realize or understand? He said, I watched that show every night. Even after I was fired, I watched the show every night. I'm like, why'd you watch it every night? Because he's the king, Barry. He's the king.
I don't think I could bring myself to watch it anymore if that was me. Far
I
out.
know, because people hold grudges, and you can't hold grudges. Now, I know what you're saying. Like, there's sometimes when I stop working with an artist and they don't engage me anymore. Like, I don't see them anymore. They don't reach out. They don't. And this happened to me recently. Jay Moore interviewed Frank Caliendo. I represented Frank Caliendo for about 10 years. I did a deal for Frank Caliendo. I think I can talk about this safely. I did a deal for Frank Caliendo. You want to talk about managing? I reached out to Dish, which I don't even know if it exists anymore. It was a cable network. And I pitched them the idea of Frank doing a commercial with all different characters on a green screen or a white screen. And they loved the idea. And there was somebody at the company I knew who knew Frank and loved Frank. They weren't sure what they were going to do, but I thought that we could do it this way. We sort of collaborated. So I don't want to take all the credit because they were really aggressive too. And they make an offer for $100,000 for him to do a couple of days shooting commercial. And I tell Frank, and he says, oh, that's great. Thank you, Barry. I said, no problem. I'm gonna ask for more. He's like, Barry, you don't. I mean, I'm good with the 100,000. I've never, I've never made more than 25,000 on a gig, and I'm good with the 100,000. I said, I know, but I think there's more. He's like, just don't lose it. I said, no problem. I negotiate with him some more. I call him back. I said, Frank, I just want to update you on the Dish thing. We're up to 250,000. He's
Quarter of a mil.
He's
Let's
like,
go.
wow, this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Barry. I'm so grateful. Thank you. I said, I think I can get more. He said, Barry, just stop. This is fine. I'm happy. Everything's good. Whatever. Frank, just trust me. I think, I can get more. I call him back a week later. I say, we're at 500,000.
Oh,
He said, Barry, close the deal. I'm happy.
Buy house
close
money.
the deal. I'm happy. I said, I just have this instinct. There's more, Frank. He's like, Barry, close the deal. I'm like, Frank, I just trust me. He's like, Barry. And this is like one of the first times that I was like, I was really going against somebody's instincts and their direction. But he didn't really know that I was going against it. Because in my mind, every manager has a trump card. And this is the trump card that every manager has. If they call back and say, the deal's over, fuck you, we're not doing it. The trump card is, you go to your artist and you say, here's a letter to send to them. Say that you never authorized Barry to ask for those numbers and you're firing him tomorrow and I'll take the last deal. So that's your trump card. Now that you don't have to fire the
Well,
person.
I've never used that before. That's a really fun tip. Okay.
So I call him back. I say, Frank, I'm ready to close the deal. He said, oh, great. Thank you, Barry. I said, it's $1 million and an option for another $1 million for some more commercials. $2 million deal.
How did you know that there was this much? Because I'm assuming the story is you closed it.
Yes.
Oh, fucking crazy. So how did you know that there was 10 times the money in the deal than the original offer? Which was already 5 times more than he'd ever earned before.
I just instinctually felt it. And I felt like he was the only guy who could do what they wanted.
But no, hang on. What are the actual economics of it? I mean, gravity, everything comes to the ground. So there must have been something that you knew about the budgets of the company, the budgets of the show, the budgets of whatever, where you were like, there is $1 million here I can extract somehow.
Look, these cable companies and these publicly traded companies, these are billion-dollar companies. And it's the thing, if you want something, you go after it. This is the thing that I about artists. Artists rarely have a sense of urgency. So you'll get an artist that'll say something to you. Let's say you're YouTube. Yeah, but let's say you have a young YouTube artist. And you really want them to create this new character that you've seen them do. And you really want them to do like a YouTube series in their YouTube channel, this character that you love that they do. And a month goes by, they don't do it, a second month, a third month.
And they complain why there's no money coming in.
Yeah. But I can guarantee you, if there's an artist that we talked about auditions, where they go on 10 auditions, they don't book a job. I can guarantee you, if there's an actor sitting right here with us, and I say to them, listen, your family is being held hostage, and you're not going to see them alive after January 1st unless you book a job before January 1st. Do you think they're going to book a job? Yes, they will. If an artist says, hey, I want to record my own stand-up special, how long has it been in the works? 4 years. If your family's being held hostage and you have to shoot that special before January 1st, or you're not going to see them alive, you're going to shoot the special? Yes, you are. And it's all about the sense of urgency. And that's what I believe it is. And so with Frank, it's the power of no. It's knowing that you have a commodity. I don't mean to call Frank a commodity. He's not a commodity, but an impressionist of his magnitude at that time, which was 15 years ago or whatever it was, there was nobody even close to what he was doing. It was just, it's insanity. He's probably, and I know people don't look at impressions as talent. They look at it this like God-given channeled thing that happens with people, and it's not even understandable. You know, it's like that young 4-year-old kid who climbs up to the piano and plays the rack. You know, obviously there's something bigger at play here. But if we don't look at that, you know, Frank Caliendo is arguably in that world one of the most unbelievably talented people, and I stopped working with him over a money issue, but I'm sure it wasn't just a money issue. I'm sure there might have been other things, and I really haven't talked to him that much since, and it saddens me because I have no animosity towards him. Whitney Cummings, who I work with, I just was at an episode of the Hollywood Squares, and I'd even booked her for a show that I did. I did this show with called Telethon for America. It was Jane Fonda and Chelsea Handler and Whitney, and she was in the building with me, and we didn't really talk, and I was like, I wonder if there might be something going on, because I have no I love Whitney. I have so much respect.
Maybe she
for
didn't know that though. Maybe she was thinking, "Oh, Barry's doesn't like me."
But who knows what it was? But I was at Hollywood Squares and I saw her talking to Drew Barrymore, and they were sitting down, and I did something which I don't think is etiquette wise. It was bad etiquette because I interrupted a conversation with her and Drew Barrymore. But I guess I presumed that since Drew produces the show too, that they had spent many times talking together and they could continue right after. And I just said, Drew, I'm sorry to interrupt. I haven't seen Whitney in a long time. I was wondering if I could just take 1 minute and then you can go back to your conversation. I'm so sorry. She said, no problem. And Whitney stood up and, she hugged me tight and introduced me to her child and said to Drew, that's the first person who ever believed in me. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, this is good, So when I run into Chappelle or Burr, who I love the quote he said about me to me. He said, Barry, I love you, but I wouldn't open a lemonade stand with you.
Oh, why is that?
No, I did a podcast with Bill and he roasted me for 90 minutes straight.
So I don't want to finish up with you without some free advice.
Free advice?
I want free advice.
You're not paying?
I'm not paying. So if I am a comic who has been on the grind for 10, 15 years, I'm living full-time off comedy, not amazingly. I'm doing all the big comedy clubs multiple times a night. I'm grinding. My follower count isn't that big. I'm stuck. I'm living full-time off comedy, but I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? What can I do to get myself to the next level?
Well, the first thing I'd say to them, which they wouldn't like to hear, is that why are you asking me a question that you know the fucking answer to? I mean, people aren't dummies. They know everything. I mean, if I'm an influencer and I post 1 time a week and my competitor posts 7 times a week, who's going to be 7 times better at the end of the year? If I'm a stand-up comedian and I go on once a week and the others go on 7 times a week, who's going to be 7 times better? I don't know of any artist in the world that outworks and outsmarts all the people that do what they do and loses. Now, I do know people who work harder than other people. And I know people who don't work as hard as other people. If Bert Kreischer, who I represented for probably 8 years and I love, if he were sitting here, I presume that he would say, I don't work as hard as Judd Apatow. I presume he would say, I'm not working as hard as Bill Burr.
He's not as big as Bill Burr.
There's a lot of people that are, what I'm saying is...
You're saying that there's people that are bigger?
If Dave Chappelle were sitting here, I presume that Dave doesn't wake up at the crack of dawn and start writing until he goes to sleep at 2 a.m. I presume that he...
The biggest mistake people can make is looking at aliens. Dave Chappelle is an alien. and say, I can do what the aliens can do. Assume you are not an alien. Work like a human being, not like an alien.
Yeah. So you can't compare yourself to all these people. But the point I'm trying to make is that you just have to, as an artist, the evidence is all there. I mean, remember I said that, the top of the thing is peace of mind. Well, when it comes to the advice that you're asking for, the number one gift that you have as an artist, and I tell all the people I consult with, if I manage it, if I do the blueprint or even the industry standard, I really believe this is a key. It's all about the lyrics. And when I say lyrics, I know lyrics are always associated with music, but I associate them with magic. I associate them with stand-up comedy, sketch, YouTube, influencers, singers, songwriters. It's like you have the lyrics. Get a helmet. It's all over. I mean, I want to share this with you, and because it's one of the most important things that I talk about, and I use this person as an example a lot, and I don't even know why, but it just always stuck with me. And it wasn't one of the greatest bits of all time, but if you're a comic, the most important thing is your premises, original premises, and then you can write as many jokes as you want under those, but just premises that what is it? Joe List does a routine. Jay Moore was telling me that he just interviewed him on Picasso. Like, who does a routine on Picasso? It's like Jim Jeffries, Gun Control. I mean, who's doing the...
That was his hit single. If we're using music analogy, that was his breakout single.
Like, who's doing routines on Gun Control?
Yeah.
Or Oscar Patoric, or whatever your name is. The guy with the prosthetics. Chappelle, the crack baby. Who's doing routines about a baby selling crack in a diaper? And so this guy who I represented long ago named Nick DiPaolo, who's now a political comedian, I'll never forget the first bit I saw him do. And because after the premise, if the premise isn't necessarily extraordinary, or if it is extraordinary, the next most important thing is the phraseology, original phraseology. So I'll share this with you and your audience. Simple premise. I'm having a bad day. I'm really hungry. I'm in New York City. I go into a sub shop. There's no one at the front desk of the sub shop. I ding the bell. Young pimply-faced kid comes out of the back with rubber gloves and a plunger in his hand. Says, "Can I help you?" Pimply-faced kid with rubber gloves and a plunger in his hand. Number one. I looked at him and I said, "Yes, you can start by boiling your hands. Start by boiling your hands." Another phrase, incredible phrase. The guy says, I don't understand. Next line. Wash them like you're sterilizing surgical tools. 3. The guy's like, "Look, pal, I'm sorry, I don't understand." He says, "Look, pal, I don't want the rhinovirus in my tuna." So 1 minute, he's got 4 phrases that no one uses. You'll never hear. And these are the things that...
Phrases you'll never hear, but you instantly understand.
Yes. And they gain respect of your peers. They gain respect of your audience. And you become instantly memorable for what you have to say. Like, I just think to myself, I saw a clip of Jim Jeffries because I love Jim, and it's one of my
Australia represent.
And I just saw a 1 minute clip, and you've seen every clip, and probably your audience has, but I just want to share with you and paraphrase it because I love it so much. Because sometimes the greats can Penn and Teller a joke. And what I mean by that is Penn and Teller were famous for telegraphing the routine and showing you what you're going to see, how the magic trick is done. And that was their thing. They would do a trick and show you how it was done in a comedic way that they created. And so there's certain comedians who can do that. And Jim Jeffries, and I know I'm sorry if I butcher this, Jim, but it's just this 1 minute clip from his special that I just love, where he just says, he talks about something, a premise that's been talked about for decades. The statistics of marriage. And he goes through the statistics. He says the least successful marriages are lesbians. The second least most successful marriages are heterosexuals. And the most successful marriages are gay men. So he's told you the statistics. Your job as an audience member, always, when you're sitting there, is to try to figure out the puzzle of what the joke is going to happen. The greatest comedians of the world do not let you know what the answer to the puzzle is until the last minute. And I want to talk a lot about this because this is really important. In a horror movie, the reason why you're scared is the person goes in the basement and you just don't know when the fucking kill shot's gonna happen, when the fucking hand's gonna come up from the stairs. You have no idea. And that's why it's great. Horror and comedy are the same, and great comedians are telling the story or the joke. You don't know where it's gonna go and you can't figure it out. But the greats can sometimes show you where you're going. Well, I already know where he's going with this, so how is this going to be funny? But it's still funny with the way he explains it. He says, let me mansplain this for you. And then he just says, gay women are the least successful marriages because there are 2 women involved. And the phrase, even though it seems common, it's not. There are 2 women involved. And then he says, regular marriages, heterosexual marriages are not much better. They're the next least successful because there is 1 woman involved. And then the next line he says is something, who knows, you probably heard in high school. He says something to the effect that, well, there's a reason why the word gay meant happy. Because there are no women involved. So you got these phrases that they seem common. There are 2 women involved. There is 1 woman involved. There is 0 women involved. And it's just like, oh my God. This is fantastic. And so let me just go with this for a second. One-liner comics are really, really challenged. And there's not a lot of one-liner comics because they have to write 5, 6, 7, 8 jokes per minute or whatever it is. Let's just say 5, 10. But Rodney, his jokes were 4 or 5 second jokes. And you probably think to yourself, well, why does he get laughs all the time? It's because the audience doesn't have time to figure it out. Oh, I got to tell you, my parents hated me. My bath toys were a radio and a fan. It's 4 seconds. You don't have the time to figure it out. It's I went to the bartender. He said, surprise me. He pulled out a picture of my wife. It's all these things where it always got to laugh because there's no time for the audience to solve the puzzle. I was consulting with somebody, and they said, what do you think of this joke? And I said, I want you to say it slowly, and I want you to stop before the punchline and see if I can guess what the punchline is. And if I can guess what the punchline is, then
It's no good.
it's no good. And it was like a common formula. He was like, I traveled to Georgia last week. I went to the black area of Atlanta. It's called, what's the joke?
I'm worried there's too many American references here I won't get. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. I went to the black area of Atlanta. It's called Atlanta. That was the joke. And I knew it was coming. I mean, and you didn't know because you're not from around here.
Yeah.
But then I remember this other woman in the blueprint, and I loved this joke, and I never saw it coming. Hi, my name's Jane. I'm 45 years old. You know you're getting old as a woman when? And I was thinking to myself, God, what could that be? When your Spanx have an expiration date?
There's a few things that come to mind.
When your nipples get caught in your shoelaces? What is she going to say? And then I asked her to say a few more lines to see if I could guess it. Hi, my name's Jane. I'm 45 years old. You know you're getting old as a woman when you have to buy. And I was stumped. I said, tell me a few more lines. When you have to buy your own. And I fucking still don't know what it is.
Drinks?
Yeah. And so this is the line. My name's Jane. I'm 45 years old. You know you're getting old as a woman when you have to buy your own cocaine. Fucking boo. Like just fucking Mike Tyson uppercut. And a lot of times artists, musical artists, comedians, magicians, they're throwing jabs. And you're not going to get anywhere throwing jabs. Yes, if you're a boxer, jabs can break down the opponent to where you can win. But jabs in comedy don't win. You need the fucking Mike Tyson uppercuts because there's other people throwing them. And that's the one thing you'll never understand from comedians. People will send me like hour specials who I look at and I take the time with. And a lot of times, like half of the jokes, or even 40% of the jokes are fucking amazing. They're like amazing phrases. Like one guy, I just watched this special, I think his name's David Smalley. And just amazing, I'm from Houston. I'm from a progressive area of Houston. People wave a rainbow Confederate flag. Rainbow Confederate flag. What is another line he said? I'm in a bar, a guy's being rough with his girl. He's pulling her hair, he's throwing her into her seat. And he looks over to me and he says, they're all bitches, right? And he says, look, man, I'm just wearing a tank top. I didn't know I was wearing your uniform. Okay, I'm not one of you, or whatever. And and then there's other things that he might talk about that are low-hanging fruit. And you wonder, like, well, do comics know what the low-hanging fruit is, the easy laughs versus whatever? Because what I like to do is I like to think to myself, like, even with a musical artist, anybody, everything's drowning in the ocean. And you can only say one thing. What is it going to be? What do you believe is your best thing? I mean, do you know what your best song is? Do you know what your best character is? Do you know what your best clip is? Do you know what directing style you use that's going to be best? Do you know what, when you write something, what is going to be the way you write it that's going to get the most response. And that's the thing, as a comedian or anybody, you have to know what you do that's the smartest, that people love. You got to think to yourself that you're in a room with your Mount Rushmore of comedians. It's Carlin, it's Chappelle, it's Pryor, it's whoever you love on top of that. And they're watching your routines, the best night you ever had in your life. They're watching every routine with the best response you had in your life. Which ones would they do? You know, like,
what a question.
Have you, like, one of the things you realize it's like, when I started working with Brad Williams, again, I always want to make sure I say the right thing so that it's so Brad used to close off with this routine before I started working with him, where he called somebody out of the audience and he did a lap dance for them with music. He was dancing around. Brad is an extraordinary, one of the greatest dancers you could ever imagine, even though he's 4'4". I don't know if he does it anymore. In dancing, you know, because he works so hard but he's amazing. And so he's out there, whatever. And I remember I was at April Foolishness, which was a benefit at the old Universal Amphitheater, 6,000 people. I'm backstage with Jay Moore, Jim Jeffries, Bill Burr, and I forget who else it was, and it was Brad. And Brad goes on and he does the lap dance, gets a standing ovation. And I'm standing next to Bill Burr, and he looks at me and he says something like, and this is great, I got to follow a dancing midget. And Jay Moore gets on stage after Brad, and he looks out at the crowd and he says, listen, I was just out back with all the comedians, and I think it's pretty obvious we're playing for second place. But the point I'm trying to make is that Brad knew that routine was not going to garner him respect in the comedy community. But he also knew that was a standing ovation bit that he was closing his shows with at the time. I'm sure he knew in his mind that he had to evolve to something else, and I made it clear to him when I met him to represent him that I wanted him to not do that anymore, because I saw him as somebody who would garner enormous respect in the business because he's so great and such a hard worker. And so there's a lot of comics that close on routines that are like, what are you doing? Like, why are you closing on that routine? And why would you do that when you know you have all the evidence? This is the last thing I'll say. Every comedian, every musical artist, every YouTube influencer, you have something that none of us had when we were growing up. But when I was growing up, I didn't have anybody to see, to watch, to study. And you have to study greatness, imitate greatness, and then you become great. And if you want to be a comedian, my God, you can study every video. You can freeze frame, time out when the laughs per minute come. A musical artist, whether you love him or hate him, if you watch early Eminem or Juice WRLD freestyling in a radio station for an hour, you know, XXX, I mean, it's incredible what you can see. You watch influencers, original influencers like Ed Bassmaster, 3 million subscribers. You watch the things he did. You can see the formulas. You don't have to steal them. You make your own thing, you do your own thing, and you see the formula. Adam Sandler still makes love stories where, you know, there's somebody walking through a place, they see the girl, the music stops, then the second act, getting the girl and losing the girl and coming back. Nobody's upset at it. It's just a formula. Sitcom formulas, talk show formulas. There's still the desk with the thing and what. but make it your own, and everything will happen. Again, if you work hard, you work smartly, and you create original lyrics or content that fuck people up. And I like to say, create holy shit moments and get a fucking helmet, because it's all over.
Barry, I am so grateful for everything you've shared with us today, the insight into your career, how the business works, free lessons. Barry, it's actually a huge privilege, and I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You should be very proud.
Oh, I'm back. Like, I don't take breaks. The world need more hope. I pray it ain't too late. I don't know what the plot is.